you know, it's past history.
Well, I just,
We'll put one in the time capsule.
anyways, the other one is this Hoffman, whatever she had said that, you know, that she wanted to be licensed, but she lost paperwork from Sister Rosalind's school or whatever, and so I told her to get a hold of Deb Huber, which she didn't, and then she contacted a different board member saying that, you know, what's the holdup, what's going on here, whatever, and she contacted Bob, and then she contacted me, and then she contacted Gail and whatever, so I said, well, John and Sharon, watch out, she's gonna contact you next, but her paperwork wasn't in, and so I told her to talk to Deb Huber, and she said she had or whatever, so when I called Deb Huber up, Deb Huber didn't really wanna talk to me because I'm asking about a student that she helped with Sister Rosalind School. She says, you know, I can't give out the student information. I said, well, that's not really what I'm asking for. I'm asking if you could write a letter or state something that you have seen all the stuff from the school or whatever. And so, because she doesn't have the paperwork, or can Sister Rosalind School, since it's closed down, cannot duplicate it for us. Somehow the main office doesn't have it or whatever it is. And I said, so, but I need something in our thing that says that the paperwork was done. So anyways, it goes through with all these different types of emails or whatever. Anyways, I finally got tired of the emails back and forth, and I had called Deb, and Deb had emailed Edward on whatever. So
yeah, the only thing Deb's email was pointing out was, you know, these students, you know, Sister Rosalind is closed, and apparently we don't know what they're doing with their records and other information. Deb pointed out what we'd already discussed at this meeting, that our statute says they, you know, must produce a diploma or other appropriate credentials. Well, yeah, the student still needs to produce something of some sort showing that they took the courses, that they passed the courses,
yes,
etc. We need to have some level of proof other than, yeah, I took all this stuff. We have to take into consideration the fact that apparently getting stuff from the Sister Rosalind School is next to impossible. I don't know why they would have shut down in the way that they did, and apparently have no means of getting transcripts or any information out. I don't know what they did with the documentation. They, you know, you would have thought they would have at least kept that, since they are operating the massage clinics.
No, they are not. They are completely closed.
They have closed down
They
now?
are completely closed, and people who have tried to come after them for litigation have gotten nowhere.
Okay, because last I knew they were keeping some of the clinics in the Twin Cities
They are
open.
now completely closed.
Including in Twin Cities? Okay. So now we have nothing to go on. You know, I would hope the students would have report cards or something, anything they could show us. But it would be nice to have something, an attempt from them to show us something that they actually went there and actually did something.
Heidi?
Are transcripts enough? Because they all should have gotten their transcripts. Is that enough documentation?
Well,
It should be.
At least one of these students claims they didn't get a transcript.
but see, a lot of people, you know, they get
That's
the transcript
right, okay.
early, and it's not an official one or whatever. But the thing it is that we used was the transcript that Deb had from her office, and then the email that Liz sent me, the email that she sent to you, and I also put that in her file. And then I called, she said, well, you know, the school is closed, I can't do anything, I can't do this and this. And I said, well, you talked to Desiree, and yeah, well, yes, but she said she can't do anything. Well, I called Desiree, and Desiree said, I can come up with, you know, she was the instructor there, she was the head of the school, she was whatever,
Yeah.
and she came, she said, what paperwork do you need, Karen? And I told her, and she said, well, I'll just get it off another student's thing, you know, to type it up professionally, whatever.
Right.
And I have that, and she's licensed, so that's, but she had to get the paperwork, and I don't think she wanted to do the grunt work a little bit, but she has it, and she's licensed, so, but I wanted just to report that back to the board, because there were emails going back and forth or whatever, that we forgot to put it on last time's thing, and no, it was never put on last time's, even though we didn't finish it, it was never put on there because she didn't have the proper paperwork, so there wasn't a problem to bring to the board. The problem was she needed to get the paperwork to send to me. and she just wanted to do it the shortcut way.
I guess I'd like to say this to board members. And Gail, to answer your question too, and I think you have a fair question, is what is the proper method of doing some of these things? I think that if we get a complaint from someone, that the proper answer to send to them is, I cannot give you an answer to this right now. It will have to be brought up at the next board meeting. And then, if you would send Karen and I, when you send us a copy, then Karen and I usually go over the agenda ahead of you guys getting it. Plus, then Karen and I usually meet the night before to see if there's any add-ons to it that she's gotten after she sends out the agenda. So, as board members, if we get something like that to an individual, our answer should be to them, I cannot give you an answer to this at this time, but I will see that it gets to the board.
And that's what I said to Liz. I said that I will make sure it's on at the next meeting, and that is not wrong saying that I could bring it up at the next meeting. I mean, that's all she wanted to hear, and I thought she was good with that.
But she wasn't good with that, because then she went to another board member. And so all of us need to carbon copy those kinds of things to each other.
And I have been. I thought I'd been doing that well. And just by telling her that, yes, I'll make sure it gets brought up, I didn't think that was a wrong thing. Because there's no,
Well, you can't assure that anybody that it will be put on the agenda.
No, but I could tell her that I might say, hey, can we bring up that, I didn't think that was wrong, that I could tell her that I'll bring it up. And I brought it up, and you could say, no, we're not gonna talk about it, or whatever, but at least I brought it up, and I kept my word. So, I didn't feel I was doing
But I
wrong
think
there.
that's something we have to do as a group. We need to be team players. If we're going to be individual players, this board is going to fall apart. And it is not going to do this profession any amount of good for the board members to be fighting within themselves. So if we can, and I'm as guilty, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, please don't think that. I've been as guilty at some of these things as anybody else. But I certainly would like us to grow in wisdom and knowledge and in communication. And communication, I don't care what profession you're in, communication seems to be the biggest issue. Lack of it is predominantly what goes on. So I, for one, will try to be a better communicator, and I'm asking the rest of the board to do that as well.
I would just caution, you can't have a substantive discussion about the issue and come to a decision, because that would be in itself a meeting. But having discussions to, create the agenda, what should be on the agenda, that is not subject to the open meeting laws, so long as it's restricted to, do we add this, do we not add this to the agenda? Otherwise, you can never, you'd have to have a meeting to develop a meeting.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
And when I said Karen and I look over this, because we kind of look over it to see how much time is going to be looked at for the meeting, who do we need to call on for issues, and it doesn't mean that as a board member that you can't bring up something when you get to the board and to be discussed. So and like I said, I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone, because if I was going to point fingers, I'd have to point it at myself first. Brandy, do you have a question?
I do have a question. I hate to make this meeting any longer, but as an outside person not on the board, what is the proper procedure to get something on the agenda? I've been assuming that I email you and Karen because you're president and secretary, but I looked and I didn't see anything that said, this far before a meeting, contact these people or anything. Is there any official thing, or is there just sort of a...
There isn't, Brandy,
Okay.
and the thing about that is we usually take the items that have been brought to by the board members first.
Well, I would
It is
assume,
not
of
that
course.
outside people cannot bring something, but we need to know exactly what's going to be issued. We can't get a vague thing is, I want to talk to the board at the next meeting. Would you please put me on the agenda? Or I have an invitation to issue. Would you please put me on the agenda? No, that's too vague. And the board will not entertain those kinds of things in putting you on the agenda.
So if I wanted to put something on the agenda, my procedure would be